Continued from the previous file, explanation of look back in anger. Page 60. Explanation number 25. Written in flames a mile high, and it won't be recollected in tranquility either. Picking daffodils with Auntie Wordsworth. It will be recollected in fire and blood. Page 98. Helena is annoyed and sick to hear the offensive tirades of Jimmy against Allison and Allison's mother. Jimmy, however, continues. He says that one day he will write a book about all of them. The material for the book is in his head. It will be a book written in flames, not a book containing facts, quote, recollected in tranquility, unquote. His book will not follow Wordsworth's view that poetry is the expression of, quote, emotions recollected in tranquility, unquote. His book will be recollected in fire and blood. In other words, his book will express his anger and rage for everybody and everything. Notes. Written in flames a mile high. His book will be based on memories which are extraordinarily fiery. Recollected in tranquility. Wordsworth defines poetry as the expression of emotions recollected in tranquility. Picking daffodils with Auntie Wordsworth. Wordsworth's sister, Dorothy Wordsworth, made entries in her diary about their walks together in the Lake District, which inspired Wordsworth's poem, The Daffodils. Explanation 26. Are you going to let yourself be taken in by the saint in Dior's clothing? Become a sacred cow as well. Page 99. Jimmy objects to Allison's going to church with Helena. He gives an account of his marriage with his characteristic cynical, satirical manner. He recollects their going to church for marriage. They found Allison's parents already there. He did not remember what happened afterwards. Helena asks if Jimmy has finished his talk. Jimmy becomes provocative. He turns to Allison and tells her not to be deceived by Helena into going to church. Helena is a hypocritical woman. She is a saint in the fashionable dress designed by Dior. She is a cow, a sacred cow, a person who receives undue importance or respect from others. Notes. Dior's clothing. Christian Dior, in bracket 1905 to 1957, bracket closed, was a famous and popular designer of the time in Paris. A saint would not wear fashionable clothes and would arouse suspicion if he or she did so. The phrase parodies the traditional phrase, quote, a wolf in sheep's clothing, unquote, that is a hypocrite. Sacred cow, a person or institution considered above criticism, derived from the Hindu veneration of the cow. Page 61. Explanation 27. Discussing sex as it were the act of fugue. Page 93. Jimmy speaks about the friends of Allison. He says to Cliff that Allison's friends are an intellectual set of people. He ironically says that they sit around feeling intellectual and laying their hands on each other's knees. He suggests that although they talk intellectual matters, but they are sexually involved. They discuss sex as if they are discussing the art of fugue. Fugue. Notes. The Art of Fugue. The Art of Fugue is a collection of pieces by Johann Sebastian Bach in bracket 1685 to 1650 bracket closed. A German musician whose work is intricate and usually associated with the mastery of very complex musical forms such as fugue. Fugue is a piece of music in which a tune is repeated by different parts of an orchestra or by voices. Explanation 28a. She is an expert in the new economics, the economics of the supernatural. Those rumors about a transfer of power. Page 99. 28b. The big crash is coming. 2. It's a capital gain and it's all yours. Page 100. 28c. The only place they can see the light is the dark ages. Page 100. 28d. She would rather go down to the ecstatic little shed at the bottom of the garden to relieve her sense of guilt. Page 100. Answers. Jimmy makes a long speech in which he ridicules Helena and her idea of life. He says that Helena is an expert in the new economics of the supernatural. She is one of the share sellers who hide the weakness of their case. Her sale of share will push the world to its end. She spreads the rumors about the change from the ideas of reason and progress to the old traditions, old beliefs in the supernatural. All the traditions are crumbling under the impact of the philosophy of persons like Helena. According to Helena, the big crash is coming and people who want to escape it should become her followers. Helena is the kind of leader who advises people to hope for gain in the next world. She is the kind of person who thinks that future progress lies in going backwards, the only place where she can see the light in the dark ages. She finds joy in the chaotic period. She is cut off from the ugly problems of the modern age and takes shelter in the little world of her own to relieve her sense of guilt. She looks backwards and is conservative and fights shy of the present. She is joyful in her own happy world of old beliefs and traditions. Jimmy says in a vulgar way that she is full of gas in the stomach and is joyful. Page 62. Notes. The economics of the supernatural. A way of thinking about the world in which everything is explained in terms of the supernatural. Apocalyptic, relating to the end of the world. Share pushers, share promoters who conceal the weakness of their case. There is going to be a change. Jimmy describes ironically a possible change in the spiritual and religious ethos in terms of shares and dividends. The big crash, the collapse of beliefs considered modern, in bracket reason and progress, bracket closed. The term is usually applied to the stock exchange. Capital gain, a term in economics which means an increase in the main sum of money and not only in the rate of interest. Dark ages, the period in bracket 5th to 8th centuries, bracket closed, of European history following the fall of Rome, resulting in anarchy. It is used as a metaphor for chaotic period. Wind, gas in the stomach. I suppose you are going want to its capital gain, etc. This long section seems to draw heavily on the musical banks section from Samuel Butler's Heirloom in bracket 1872. Butler 1835 to 1902 wrote Heirloom in bracket nowhere as a satire on the social institutions of the Victorian age. The Erewhonian banking system is a satire on the church. Piety is invested for a dividend of salvation. Act 2, Scene 2. Explanation number 29. A charwoman who married an actor worked hard all her life. Page 108. In the course of conversation between Ellison and Colonel Redfern, Ellison's father, the latter inquires about Mrs. Tanner, who has had a stroke and to see whom Jimmy has gone to London. This lady has established Jimmy in the sweet stall business. The colonel asks what kind of lady she is. Ellison replies that she is an ordinary kind of woman from the working class and that she was a charwoman who married an actor and who had worked all her life struggling to support her husband and son. Ellison also informs her father that Jimmy and Mrs. Tanner are very fond of each other. Here we get another aspect of Jimmy's character. Jimmy has tender feelings. He is very much attached to Mrs. Tanner, who comes from working class. Jimmy's anger is directed against the middle class. Charwoman who married an actor. A charwoman is a cleaning woman. The term implies a working class woman. Significantly, page 63. The two elements of the play, class and theatre, are drawn together in the description of this secondary character. Explanation 30. This is the famous American question, you know, the $64 one? Page 111. Colonel Redfern, in his conversation with Ellison, tells her that he and Ellison's mother are to be blamed for the situation between Jimmy and Ellison. They should not have interfered in their married life. He then asks why Jimmy married Ellison when he regards Ellison's mother as an, quote, overfed, overprivileged old bitch, unquote, and her father as, quote, one of those sturdy old plants left over the Edwardian wilderness, unquote. Ellison replies that it is the most puzzling question. She cannot understand Jimmy and does not understand why Jimmy married her when he has so much hatred for the middle class. Thus, the question why he married is difficult to answer. She thinks it may be due to his desire to take revenge on the middle class. He wants to torment her and abuse her father and mother. American questions. This refers to an American quiz show popular in Britain in the 1950s, in which the winning question was called the $64 question. Explanation 31. Or perhaps he should have been another Shelley and can't understand now why I am not another Mary and you are not William Godwin. Page 111. Context same as explanation 30. Ellison explains that some people marry for revenge. Perhaps Jimmy should have been another Shelley who married Mary Godwin, the daughter of the social philosopher William Godwin. Percy Bysshe Shelley, the romantic poet, in brackets 1792 to 1822, bracket closed, married Mary Wollstonecraft Goldwyn, in brackets 1791 to 1851, bracket closed, daughter of rational philosopher William Godwin. The parallel implies that Allison feels that Jimmy cannot come to terms with what she and her father really are, or what he is, and has to cast them in roles too complex for them to sustain. Shelley had a romantic marriage with Mary, and her father Godwin did not approve of this marriage. Shelley followed impulses in his amatory life. He married Harriet Westbrook. He had then love affair with Cornelia Turner, and he then eloped with Mary Godwin. He married her after Harriet's suicide. Thus, Shelley had an idealistic search for ideal love and beauty. Jimmy lives his life constantly seeking parallels between his experience and the unattainable ideals he has absorbed from literature and art. Page 64. Explanation 32. People told you all the time the way it was going to the dogs, as the Blimps are supposed to say. Page 112. This is a part of the conversation between Allison and Colonel Redburn about Jimmy. He says that it is his belief that man and woman marry because they are in love. He cannot understand that love between man and woman has anything to do with the challenges and revenge. He cannot understand why his daughter is entangled in such a situation. He admits that Jimmy is right in describing him as an, quote, old plant left over from the Edwardian wilderness, unquote. He is old, conservative. He cannot understand why life cannot be enjoyable. The Colonel then explains why he feels as he does. On March 1914, he left England, and he returned in the year 1947 from India after India was liberated. During these years, things had changed a great deal. His mind had not kept abreast of the times. People like die-hard conservatives. Colonel Blimp said that England was going to the dogs, that is, morally ruined, but he did not believe it. The Blimps. Colonel Blimp was a famous cartoon character who became a general name for all those who could not come to terms with the decline of Britain as an imperial force, and who regarded the past glory of the empire as the only reality in a changing world. It implies a blind attachment to the values of the past and a refusal to view the present in any light but that of deteriorating standards. Explanation 33. Oh, how could she be so bloody wet? Deep loving need. That makes me puke. Page 116. Allison has left the house with her father, Colonel Redburn. She has written a note to Jimmy. When Jimmy returns, Helena hands over the letter to Jimmy. Jimmy reads the letter aloud. Allison has written that she is going away because she needs peace and desperately, and that in order to get peace, she is willing to sacrifice everything at this time. She wants Jimmy to be a little patient with her. She has also written that she will always have, quote, deep loving need of Jimmy, unquote. Jimmy mocks at the contents of the letter. He taunts Allison for being sentimental and sloppy. The words, quote, deep loving need, unquote, make him vomit. These sentimental utterances create a feeling of disgust and nausea in him. Allison, however, has a deep and sincere love for Jimmy, but she cannot reconcile herself to the wretched situation that Jimmy has created for her. Page 65. Act 3, Scene 1. Explanation number 34. So do you, but I am not singing an aria about it. The dirty ones get more and more wet round the mouth, and posh ones are more pompous than ever. Page 119. Scene 1, Act 3 opens several months after the departure of Ellison from Jimmy's house. Helena has stayed on. The situation is almost a repetition of the first scene of the first act. Cliff and Jimmy are seen stretched in their respective armchairs, absorbed in the Sunday newspapers. Helena, in bracket, in the place of Ellison, bracket close, is busy ironing the clothes. Helena occupies the role that Ellison played in the opening scene. Cliff objects to Jimmy's smoking his pipe. The old pipe stinks. Jimmy asks him to shut up. When Cliff repeats that his pipe stinks, Jimmy replies that Cliff stinks. He says that he is not making a fuss about it. The poor are cowardly in speech and the rich are pompous in their speeches. Aria, a song for one voice in an opera. The dirty ones and the posh, the poor and the rich, wet round the mouth, cowardly in speech. Explanation number 35. Next week, a well-known debutante relates how during an evil orgy in Market Harborough, she killed and drank the blood of a white cockerel. Page 120. Jimmy and Cliff sit in the armchairs and read the Sunday papers. In bracket, Act 3, Scene 1, bracket closed. Jimmy asks Cliff if he has read about the grotesque, grotesque, evil practices going on in the Midlands. Cliff has not read the particular news item. Jimmy explains that some people have been indulging in midnight invocations to the Coptic goddess of fertility. Helena remarks that it is evil. Jimmy says that it is confused and silly. A well-known girl making her first formal appearance as a devotee at a religious gathering relates how a wild party at Harbour Rough Market killed a white young cock and drank its blood as part of the religious ceremony. If other devotees have been doing the same, those who deal poultry must be doing good business, because young cocks would be very much in demand for purposes of sacrificial killing. Jimmy condemns religious practices which involve sacrifices of animals. These religious superstitions are prevalent among the upper class people who take religion as a cover for their wicked practices. An evil orgy in Market Harborough. Jimmy refers to the witch cults which were popular in Britain in the 1950s and 1960s. These were a cover for the middle class to indulge in illicit sex spiced with mysticism. The class context of the comment is emphasized by Jimmy's reference continued in the next file.